My in-laws treated me like a servant. A new marriage slowly turns into unpaid labor disguised as family expectations. I never thought those words would describe my life. If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said I was lucky. New marriage. New home. A fresh start in California. I thought I was stepping into love. Instead, I stepped into a life where my worth was measured by how quietly I worked and how little I complained. This is my story. I live in California, or at least, I did when all of this started. I had moved there after marrying my husband, Daniel. He grew up in a traditional household, the kind that talked a lot about family values and respect, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Every family has their quirks, right? I was raised differently. My parents taught me that marriage was a partnership. That love meant effort from both sides. That if someone truly cared about you, they wouldn't expect you to shrink yourself to make their life easier. Daniel knew that about me. Or at least, I thought he did. We met through mutual friends, dated for 2 years, and got married in a small ceremony by the coast. It was simple and beautiful. I remember standing there, barefoot in the sand, thinking, this is it. This is the life I've been waiting for. For the first few weeks after the wedding, everything felt normal. His parents lived about 40 minutes away, and they visited often. His mother would smile sweetly and say things like, now you're part of the family, or, in this house, we all help each other. At first, it sounded warm, welcoming. I didn't realize those words would slowly turn into rules. It started small. The first time his parents stayed over, his mom asked if I could make breakfast. Just something simple, she said. I didn't mind. I actually enjoyed cooking. I made eggs, toast, coffee. Everyone thanked me. No red flags. The next visit, she asked me to cook dinner, then she asked me to clean up afterward. Then, without asking, she handed me a list of groceries and said, you're younger. You have more energy. I laughed it off. That was my first mistake. After about 3 months, Daniel's parents started coming over every weekend. Sometimes they stayed 2 days. Sometimes 3, and every time they came, the expectations grew. If the house wasn't spotless, his mother would sigh and say, you must be tired from adjusting to married life. If dinner wasn't ready by the time his father sat down, she'd glance at the clock. No one ever directly said, this is your job. They didn't have to. It was understood. What hurt the most was Daniel's silence, when his mother would ask me to make tea while everyone else sat on the couch. Daniel didn't notice, or maybe he did, and chose not to. One night, after his parents left, I finally said something. I feel like I'm doing everything when they're here. Daniel frowned, confused. They're just old-fashioned, he said. They don't mean anything by it. That sentence became his favorite. They don't mean anything by it, so I tried harder. I cleaned more. Cooked better. Smiled through my exhaustion, because that's what good wives do, right? By 6 months into the marriage, I was exhausted in a way I had never been before. I worked a full-time job during the week. On weekends, I became a full-time caretaker, cooking breakfast, lunch, dinner, washing dishes. Doing laundry, not just ours, but theirs too. When they stayed over, his mother would sit at the table, watching me move around the kitchen, and say things like, you're learning quickly. Or, this is how a real home is run. I stopped feeling like a daughter-in-law. I felt like hired help who didn't get paid. The breaking point didn't come in a dramatic explosion. It came quietly. One Sunday morning, I woke up early to make breakfast before his parents got up. My back hurt. My hands were dry from cleaning chemicals. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. I looked tired. Smaller, and for the first time, I thought, if I stop doing all of this. What happens? That day, I didn't rush. I made coffee for myself first. I sat down. I let myself breathe. When his mother came into the kitchen and saw that breakfast wasn't ready, her face changed. Not angry, disappointed, she looked at Daniel and said, she must be feeling lazy today. Daniel laughed. Something inside me cracked. I realized then that this wasn't about chores. It was about control, about expectation, about a role they had assigned me without ever asking if I agreed. And the worst part? I had been playing along. If you're listening to this and thinking, why didn't she leave earlier? I get it. I ask myself that too. But when you're slowly trained to believe that your discomfort is normal, that your exhaustion is just part of marriage, it's hard to see the line where love ends and exploitation begins. That line became clear very soon, and crossing it changed everything. After that morning, something shifted, not in them. In me, I started noticing things I had ignored before. Little comments. Small looks. The way silence was used like a weapon. When Daniel's parents came over the next weekend, I tried an experiment. I cooked dinner, but I didn't rush. I cleaned, but only after everyone was done eating. I sat down when my feet hurt. His mother watched me carefully, like she was taking notes. At one point, she leaned over to me and said quietly, "When I was your age, I never sat while my elders were still eating." I smiled politely. Inside, my stomach twisted. That night, after they went to bed, Daniel pulled me aside. "Did something happen today?" he asked. I told him how I felt. Again, how I was tired. How I felt taken for granted. How I didn't feel like myself anymore. He sighed, not angry. Not concerned, just tired. "You're overthinking," he said. "They're my parents. This is just how family works." That sentence hurt more than anything else, because what he was really saying was, "This is your place now. Accept it." From that point on, the expectation stopped pretending. His mother began giving instructions instead of suggestions. "Make sure dinner is earlier tomorrow. Wash these the right way. You should wake up earlier. Married women don't sleep in." Once, I overheard her talking to a relative on the phone. "She's still adjusting," she said. "But she'll learn." Learn what? How to disappear. The worst part was how normal it all became. I stopped wearing clothes I liked because they were too modern. I stopped going out with friends because weekends were family time. I stopped talking about my job because no one listened. My world shrank to the size of that house, and every time I tried to speak up, I was reminded, gently, politely, that I should be grateful. "You're lucky," his aunt once told me. "You married into a good family." I nodded. I didn't feel lucky. I felt trapped. One evening, after another exhausting weekend, I broke down in the bathroom. I locked the door, sat on the floor, and cried silently so no one would hear me. I remember thinking, how did this happen so slowly? No one ever said, "You are our servant." They didn't need to. They wrapped it in words like tradition and respect and love. A few days later, something happened that made it impossible to ignore anymore. Daniel's parents announced they would be staying with us for 2 weeks, not asking, announcing. His mother smiled and said, "You don't mind, right? This is your duty now." Duty, that word echoed in my head. Those 2 weeks were the hardest of my life. I woke up before sunrise. I went to bed after everyone else. I cooked 3 meals a day. Cleaned nonstop. Barely Saturday, Daniel went to work like nothing had changed. One afternoon, his mother handed me a pile of laundry and said, "Make sure my clothes are folded separately." I stared at her. For the first time, I didn't respond right away. She raised her eyebrows. "What's wrong?" I almost said it. I almost said everything, but Daniel was in the room, watching, waiting, and he said nothing, so I took the laundry. That was the moment I realized something devastating. I wasn't just alone, I was unsupported. That night, I finally confronted Daniel. "I can't do this anymore," I said. My voice was shaking. "I feel like I'm losing myself." He looked genuinely surprised. "They're not here forever," he said. "Why can't you just handle it?" Handle it, like it was a temporary inconvenience, like I wasn't slowly breaking. I asked him a simple question. "Do you see me as your wife? Or as someone who's supposed to serve your family?" He didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. I went to bed that night with a knot in my chest. I knew something had to change, either my role in that house, or my place in that marriage. If you're thinking, "This is where she leaves," you're not wrong. But leaving isn't always the hardest part. Sometimes, the hardest part is realizing that the person you trusted most is perfectly comfortable watching you suffer. And the next thing that happened made it clear. This wasn't going to get better. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm, not peace, clarity. It was like something inside me had finally accepted the truth I'd been fighting for months. Nothing was going to change unless I changed it. Daniel's parents were already awake. His mother was in the kitchen, reorganizing cabinets that weren't hers. His father sat at the table, reading the news, waiting for breakfast. I stood there for a moment, watching them, and for the first time, I didn't feel nervous, I felt tired. Breakfast? His mother asked, without looking at me. I took a breath. I'm not making it right now, I said. She turned around slowly. The room went quiet. What do you mean? She asked. I said carefully, I'm not your maid. I work all week. I'm exhausted. Her face hardened instantly. Excuse me? Daniel walked into the kitchen just then. Perfect timing. His mother crossed her arms. So this is how you treat elders now? She asked. We didn't raise our son like this. I looked at Daniel. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for without realizing it. I'm not refusing out of disrespect, I said. I'm refusing because I'm being treated unfairly. His father scoffed. In our family, women take care of the home. Something snapped. I am not your woman, I said. I am Daniel's wife. Not your servant. Daniel finally spoke. You don't have to say it like that. I stared at him. That's the problem, I said quietly. You never say anything. His mother shook her head. You've changed since marriage, she said. You were nicer before. I almost laughed. Before, I didn't know my kindness would be used against me. The argument escalated quickly after that. His mother accused me of being lazy. His father accused me of disrespect. Daniel asked me to calm down. No one asked how I felt. No one asked why I was hurting. I realized something then that hit harder than any insult. They didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a role. I walked out of the kitchen and went into the bedroom. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. I pulled out a suitcase. Daniel followed me. What are you doing? He asked, panic creeping into his voice. I'm leaving, I said. For how long? He asked. I zipped the suitcase shut. I don't know, I said. But I know I can't stay. He looked genuinely shocked. You're overreacting, he said. This is just family stuff. I turned to him. No, I said. This is what happens when love has conditions. His parents stood in the hallway, watching. His mother shook her head in disappointment. If you leave now, she said, don't expect things to be the same. I looked at her. I hope they're not, I said. I left the house with nothing but a suitcase and my car keys. I didn't cry until I reached the freeway. California traffic surrounded me, loud and indifferent, but for the first time in months, I could breathe. I stayed with a friend at first. She listened as I told her everything, every comment, every expectation, every silent moment. When I finished, she said something I'll never forget. You didn't lose a marriage, she said. You escaped a system. Daniel called. Texted. Apologized, vaguely. I didn't realize it was that bad, he said. That hurt almost as much as everything else, because it meant he had seen it. He just didn't think it mattered. Weeks passed. His parents never apologized. They told relatives I was difficult, that I couldn't adjust. Let them talk. For the first time, their opinions didn't define me. I started therapy. I started sleeping again. I started feeling like myself, strong, whole, human. Looking back now, I understand something I didn't then. Love that demands your silence isn't love. Respect that only flows one way isn't respect. And family expectations that erase you aren't expectations, they're control. I didn't walk away because I was weak. I walked away because I finally remembered who I was. If you're listening to this and you feel exhausted all the time, if you feel invisible in your own home, if your pain is constantly explained away as tradition or family values, please hear this. You are not selfish for wanting to be treated like a person.